Hello again and welcome to Magnus Carlsen's 5 best and instructive chess endings. Magnus has been known as maybe the best endgame player of all time, and we can learn a lot from the way he plays this part of the game, and that's what we're going to look at now. For example, Magnus has the black pieces against Francisco Vallejo Pons, one of Spain's toughest and best grandmasters. And now Vallejo plays rook c1, and this actually fails to rook takes rook, king takes, and now a brilliant move. Can you see Magnus's idea? I'm sure most players would play a5. And as always with these YouTube videos, I want you to try and jump into the shoes of Magnus and be Magnus just for one day, or even like a couple of minutes. Actually, it might not be that enjoyable, but I'm sure it would be great for a little bit to have his chess ability. And the move now that Magnus plays, h4, is truly a brilliant move. And this just shows us how we need to find the weaknesses in our opponent's position, here g2, and just make sure we clamp down on them with the aim of eventually coming in and, just winning on that weakness. And here, after this exchange on h4, knight takes a6, bishop d3, we can see that this h4 move has shut down the pawn on g2. And with a couple more moves, the bishop coming around to grab that pawn, white had no way out of that problem, the h-pawn is going to win the game. So make sure you do locate your opponent's weakness, shut it down, and then aim for it, target. In the ending, this is especially a good thing to do when your opponent has these pawns of funny squares. A nice one to kick us off. Aronian, a player he's had many end games against, and he now plays a very strong move, g6. And this just shows us that even in the ending, we don't want to lose tempo. I think a lot of other players may have moved the rook, but if you can avoid losing tempo, you need to. And in the ending, there's often many tactical possibilities. People often think, oh, it's an ending, it's boring, there's no tactics. And it's where most players get tired, and even more tactics come about in the ending. Now, this rook could not be captured because after something like rook h6, g7, and the knight now comes to f5, and black can't really move anything here at all. And it's just a matter of time before white wins this position. So Aronian has to put his bishop on a passive square, but now the pawn strikes forwards. And with eventually the king coming up the board and knight takes f5, black doesn't really have many options. He can't really move anything. He tries f4 with the idea of getting counterplay. Normally a good idea in the ending, go for the most active sequence. But after knight take f5, rook takes a2, rook f6, Magnus is now creating a checkmate net. There's only one way to stop the checkmate, by blocking or with rook to e8, but now comes the next tactic. And I'll leave it for you guys just to work out what was the killer blow after the next move. Black resigned. Discuss below. In this next example against one of my favorite players, Alexander Morozevich, he's a real maverick of the game. Love Morozevich's play, such a unique player. But I think this demonstrates to us that assumptions like all opposite color bishop endings are not always true. Assumptions are the mother of all mishaps. And you've got to avoid, just assuming positions as such without calculating and looking deeper. Because in actual fact, after a6, bishop e3, Magnus is just winning here. Can you see the winning idea? How do you try to promote your pawns? It looks tough with a bishop here, but we just go king c6, and there's no stopping the b pawn. And after a couple more moves, it's clear that even tempos and tactics are apparent in the ending. Moving the bishop here would lose a key tempo, but we don't need to do that. And again, it's so important to calculate every stage of the game, even with little material. And after the following couple of moves, it's now clear that Magnus is winning because he queens first, and his queen will be able to stop Morozevich's pawns. So again, push your passed pawns and be careful of assumptions in the ending. Calculate your way through. You got a noggin. Lev Aronian with the black pieces on the receiving end yet again. Sorry, Lev, I love you really. And here, after the knights get exchanged, we have a rook ending. The reason I picked this is just to show how important the king is in a rook ending. Just compare the two kings. Lev's is kind of stuck in the corner. Magnus's does not look great at the moment, but it has potential. And after king g8, we really see the winning idea here. The problem black had is he can't pick up this pawn easily because the white rook would infiltrate. Having a pawn on h6 is often a brilliant asset when your opponent's king is stuck on the back rank in an ending. And after king g8, rook e4 is a fantastic move. This rook is coming down to g6, trapping that king back in the corner. Lev is kind of helpless to this plan. The rook dives in. Again, the strength of Harry, so important. Lev tries to get some counterplay, but after rook takes h7, it's just too late. White's plan is to move the rook to g4, and then go h7, h8. So black has to move his king back into the corner. And now the winning idea is to activate the king on g2. And after king to f3, the king comes charging in, whilst black's king is just trapped in its cage. Activity of the king so important, and the king is really the game winner here. Lev trying to get a passed pawn, but it's too slow. King e4, that king heading for c6, so black must take on d6, but now rook f7, and after g4 there's no stopping all of white's pawns. And the nice touch is a little tactic, check, and now g5. Really, Lev can't do anything, and after pawn takes f6. And this is very good technique. The white king is actually just heading for g6, with rook f8 being checkmate. Another nice point about this is black's pawn on g5. For example, if rook takes a2, Lev resigned here, we can try as black taking another pawn with check. But now black would not want this pawn on g5, so he could check the king. Instead, it's going to be forced checkmate. A real exploitation of the kings there. Very nice play yet again by one of the best endgame players ever. That's not me, unfortunately. It's Magneto. A brilliant endgame player, and he shows in this example from the World Championship match against Anand, a game that helped him become world champion, that even in positions which a lot of people said were going to be draw, it's the activation that is key. And here, yes, Magnus is 2 pawns up, but his rook is very passive. Anand's rook is very active. And in order to win this, he has to give back a lot of material. First of all, he improves his position by bringing his king up, but now the key move. The only way to make progress is to give up this pawn on b5. A lot of players wouldn't do this. They'd be a little bit resistant to give some material back. But rook activity is much more important than one measly pawn in a rook ending. Remember that. Get your rook active. And slowly now he pushes white backwards, and we get to a position where he makes as much progress as he can by pushing that king all the way to h2. But how do you win now? Well, now he uses his king. His rook has got to a good square, cutting the white king off, but he needs to use his king, and the winning plan is quite brilliant. It's to place the king somewhere where it can support the f-pawn, but at the moment the f-pawn cannot come because the g-pawn is in the way, so we need to distract the g-pawn out of the way. It's quite brilliant. And this is also quite risky because you have to give up another pawn. And here white has 2 connected passed pawns, but after f4, rook e4, h3, another pawn is sacrificed. We can see that black has achieved his goal. His f-pawn is much further advanced. He now moves his rook away, allowing the pawn just to move forwards. And here Magnus is winning. There's no way this can be stopped. So we can gain from this that, you know, material is not always that important in the ending. It's the activity of the pieces and how good your passed pawn is. Magnus's passed pawn is very good. White's passed pawns are too far back. Brilliant play there to help Magnus become world champion. Magnus Carlsen showing some brilliant technique in the ending. I do love watching his endings. I think he's quite possibly the best endgame player of all time. That's a big statement. Do you agree or disagree?